All right, so let's talk about day 9 so far of the Jonathan Majors trial. So we're going to start with the beginning of court and discuss any motions that happened before, and then we'll get right into the first witness, which is going to be Chloe. So before jury enters, judge is going to rule on prosecution request to call an expert on domestic violence. An expert would be used to dispel myths surrounding intimate partner violence, important in a case like this, as such would help explain why accuser would stay with alleged abuser. The court will permit testimony from an expert in the dynamics of domestic violence. The judge finds that testimony in general terms is a proper aid in the jury's understanding of Ms. Jabbari's behavior in this case. But the judge will not allow the expert to testify that because a person exhibited certain behaviors, that person is a victim of domestic violence. Also, the court will not allow testimony that false allegations of domestic violence are incredibly rare. And then from Dani, Gaffey is allowing a DV expert to testify with very limited parameters for what she can and cannot say, including but not limited to not discussing psychological diagnoses or battered woman syndrome. So you see, I think weaving those two together, we got a little bit more completeness. And then the first witness is Chloe. So Chloe takes the stand at 10:35. She's the blonde one in this video coming out here. That's going to be Max. He goes by Billy, but that's who we're going to hear from as the first two witnesses. And then Josh notes here, and I think this is good to call. So she gets on around 10:35 and she's off the stand by 11:30. Questioning by both parties done. Chloe, who was in the group of people whom Grace Jabbari encountered after the cab incident, is testifying about their meeting. She explained to me that she had just gotten out of a moving vehicle and no longer had her phone, wallet, or keys, and had just found out that her significant other was cheating on her. So they don't note that she came up yelling it was Jonathan Majors. Maybe she wasn't allowed to. Or you know what? I don't think Chloe was outside when... Hold on now. Where's the no way testimony?
No way.
Yeah, so Chloe's not standing there, so that's why. So Chloe's not standing there when she says, my boyfriend's Jonathan Majors, and he goes, no way. But I thought, and remember, she explained to me, so this is Grace. This is her recalling what Grace told her, that she had just gotten out of a moving vehicle. But at this point, the 5-block chase had already occurred, so that's a very interesting way to characterize and say all those events, you just got out of a moving vehicle. You left out all those details. Going to sum up what happened, Chloe and her friend stuck around because Grace was upset and Jonathan was around, and group learned that the two lived together. They were trying to figure out who would stay where. Well, we know that Jonathan Majors was going to a hotel. He was on the phone with Priya S., talking about what just happened. We know that Grace was upset that he was yelling on the phone out loud about what happened while on the phone with Priya S., his manager that also helped manage things for Grace. And that phone call is probably part of arranging for this hotel meet, so this is probably putting it into the time frame of when they move off camera. When Jonathan goes by in the surveillance footage, and then Jabbari follows, and then the friends follow. So here she says they were trying to figure out who would stay where. Eventually, Chloe's group wanted to finally go to the birthday party. They were running super late. I was the one who invited her to join us. Yeah, that's not really important testimony. Victoria says this is important testimony because defense made a big thing about Jabbari going to a nightclub after the alleged assault. Here, Chloe provides insight on how Jabbari wound up there. Well, did anyone get this far watching the trial and not already assume that Jabbari was invited along to go with the group? I don't really think that's big testimony. And that's not the important part. You guys are always welcome to make your own interpretation of, the reporters, anything that I read on here. Totally your call. You don't have to agree with my interpretations. This situation might suggest to jurors that going to the club was less Jabbari wanting to party hard and more because of circumstances. Well, don't forget, Jabbari also testified on her own that she didn't want to go back to the penthouse alone. She already got her bag back. She had her keys, wallet, everything. She threw something on the ground. We don't know what, but whatever she threw on the ground and didn't want to testify, she said she didn't know what it was. She didn't have that anymore, but presumably she had her keys, wallet, the important stuff. And we know she had Jonathan Majors' credit card. If she had really wanted to go to a hotel, or if she was bleeding from the ear, I'm not sure that... I think this invite is actually really important. Because who would invite someone with a bleeding ear to go to the club rather than say, hey, can we help you get to treatment? That's crazy. But I guess this is important testimony, but it's important to me in a different way. Anyway, Victoria tweets, also, just something general that has nothing to do with allegations. It's just nice to see bystanders, intervene if they think someone's wrong or need help. Oh, true. The one also tried to fight. They tried to help, but the Max also tried to start a fight, so, that could have gone sour. But, Chloe's done testifying, new witness soon. And before we get into his testimony, let's look at other Chloe reports. I'm actually hopping over, so Josh Russell writes for Courthouse News. So we're going to get to the driver's testimony. I'm looking for more information on Chloe before we move forward. But the subtitle here, what we're leading with for the whole day so far. And remember, the driver testified after Max and Chloe. So there was all of that context to start with. But what we're choosing to subheadline here is, the driver testified he saw Majors push ex-girlfriend, but couldn't recall how many times the actor pushed her. So, but pin that because we're going to get to the driver's testimony. Okay, so if I search, and hold on, let me pull this down so you can see. If I put Jonathan Majors trial Chloe. What? Like, are you serious? It is 3:36 p.m. Eastern, so I'm in the same time zone as the trial. It is 3:36 p.m. Eastern, and we don't have any results for Jonathan Majors trial Chloe in the news. 12 days ago, 3 days ago. For posterity, let me try Google. Okay, we do have... I think Google's just feeding me stuff. Hold on, there's 2 results from 4 hours and 37 minutes ago, but they both seem to lead with the driver. No results on page for Chloe. All right, we have a little blurb. We do have a little coverage. Oh wait, it's identified as Chloe's boyfriend. Hold on, are there more mentions? This is the only testimony so far at... Thank you, Michelle Del Rey, for doing something. 3:37 p.m. Eastern, the only coverage we have so far about Chloe is in the independent.co.uk, and this is what it says. Chloe, the woman who said she went to a bar with Grace Jabbari the night of the incident, is done testifying. Is there something else? Maybe there's another page. Okay, so we do have a little bit more testimony. Whew! So, a woman who went to a bar with Grace Jabbari after the incident on March 25th is testifying. The woman, who has only been identified as Chloe and has been described as blonde, said she ran into Miss Jabbari in Soho. She explained to me that she'd just gotten out, and this is coming from Vulture, so this is all just Victoria's testimony. And a Vulture article didn't come up, but I think they probably are just saying it's a Vulture reporter. Just found out that she was cheating on her. So there you have it. You watched me in real time. Look for coverage. Prosecutors call Max Manning. This is the boyfriend. But he goes by the nickname Billy. So if you see Billy anywhere else from this point forward, it is referencing Max Manning. And their other friend's name was Shams, but I don't think he's testifying. Maybe he'll be called later. And we're going to get to Dani's coverage, and you're going to see why that's shocking. We're going to do Dani's coverage of it as Chloe and Max, because she does group it together, even though she distinguishes different things. But let's look at the coverage for Max really quick. I'm assuming it'll be really quick. I can't believe that. So next witness is Max Manning. Big SantaCon energy from this witness, quickly off the stand. And that's what we get. And then if we go back to Victoria, prosecutors call Max. They were the ones seen on the sidewalk. And that's it from direct. Went very quickly, we have no update. She says she'll update when it's cross. So the defense asks Max, you didn't notice any injuries on her? Correct. She didn't complain about any injuries. Did she complain about any injuries? I can't remember that part, but not specifically. And crosses over. In short, the prosecutors basically just asked Max how he encountered Jabbari, what he saw, and did she go into a car with Majors and then get out? And she knows that it started and ended super quickly. So then we get to Dani's coverage. Both Chloe and her Billy badass boyfriend testified and seems favorable to the defense in not only establishing doubt for how and when Jabbari's injuries were sustained, but for her high level of intoxication. She ran into a wall while exiting Lucy's for the cab, and Grace was asked about this on Thursday, but she recharacterized it after being asked if she ran into a wall as just brushing against it. No, and then Dani says, yep, and they played the video. She ran into it. The defense mentioned it, and of course it was objected to and sustained, but we saw it though. Both she, Chloe, and he, Max, said no injuries were noticed on Grace at all, ever. So, did Whitecap explain why he lunged at Jonathan Majors and why he was smiling when he did? They would not allow Chloe to describe what happened in that moment, too. She laughed a couple times on the replays, though. I laugh every time, too. I feel it. And then we have a video, and Jimmy described this, too, but I don't think the questions were the same. So, Jimmy had seen this video. He described it as when they were leaving Lucy's to go outside. You know, the girls, like, kind of drunkenly seeming. You know how girls are. They're, like, hugging each other, like, really hugging each other with arms, hands, contact, everything. And they played this video again today, but with Chloe on the stand. They get to ask, you're hugging Grace cheek to cheek on the right side 3 to 5 times with a white shirt on. So they ask her, and Chloe testifies that she did not ever notice any blood, bleeding, or injuries to Jabbari's ear or hand. No blood transferred to her white shirt either. So great time shout out Dani, because that's way more than we heard anywhere else. And let's do this search. No, it's the same timeline. That's all we've got. Maybe I'll just put Max. 1 week ago. Nope. So no news outlets besides The Independent, who's reporting with what Victoria is reporting in the courtroom, have anything about Max's testimony or Chloe's testimony. It is now 3:48 p.m. Eastern while I'm recording this. And we're going to get into the driver now. But let's recap that. No blood, no visible injuries, no report of he hurt me, he hit me, he did anything like that to me, from both Chloe and Max. Oh, and then Dani clarifies about Chloe. On the way out of the club, there's a hallway leading to the exit, that wall. And this is a great point from Jessie B. Don't you guys think that this could be the reason why she broke her finger, since she hit something? And then, funnish fact, Jonathan stopped to take a selfie with a fan, and we heard that. That's Priya. That's another thing Priya said. That's another thing Priya laid out. So every day we're getting something that was in that April 18th letter that Priya laid out for exactly what happened this night. And every day we get confirmation, either through testimony or some type of video evidence that's introduced, that confirms what Priya said. The only thing is that there's no video from inside the black Escalade, which maybe they thought there would be and they weren't able to retrieve it. But there's still video of the incident as it was unfolding out of the doorway of the Escalade and from the street, pointing at the vehicle as it was chasing, and, because that's a small detail. Priya noted that detail about him stopping to take a selfie with the fan after attempting the second escape from Jabbari. He also thanks Chloe and crew for, quote, taking care of Grace. So he's going to the hotel, right? And he must have said thanks for taking care of her when they agreed to go their separate ways. So before we get into the actual driver's testimony, let's look at what was discussed before he could take the stand today. So we left off last weekend knowing that they were going to get him a translator for Urdu, and that he speaks decent enough English, but to fully understand the questions, the translator should be there to make sure he's fully understanding the nuances of the question. So we find out that the DA met with the driver yesterday, so Sunday, with an interpreter. And just this morning via email, 9:07 a.m., they let the defense know via a Brady disclosure. So it's their obligation. Brady is a federal obligation where the prosecution has the obligation to disclose to the defense exculpatory evidence as it relates to witnesses. They need to disclose any possible agreements, any benefits conferred, any potential favoritism, any issues that could go to credibility, anything about that witness that could impugn that witness's credibility or in any way impact the fairness of the trial or go to exonerating the defendant. And it's heard before he takes a stand that the driver is not allowed to say how much force Majors used in trying to keep Jabbari in the car. However, he had stated it was a 3 or 4 out of 10 in intensity, not 10 and 10 like Perez said in opening arguments. Throwing like a pretty weak football there. I mean, we don't want to sign you as a quarterback. We also have some reporting from Molly Crane Newman about the driver, but it's the only reporting I've noticed from her today. It pertains to the driver. The night of the incident, he first brought Majors and Jabbari to the Brooklyn Academy of Music and then to a restaurant, waiting outside both. Now, that restaurant is where we heard the margarita story where she peeks around the corner and she runs back to get the drink. He said neither seemed intoxicated after the restaurant as they headed back to Manhattan from their dinner. When they reached Canal and Center Street, the girl said that, "I want to see something on your phone," and that she wanted to see a message, some message. The boy said that there is nothing, but the girl was insisting. The girl became very angry, he said through the interpreter. He was saying, "Leave me alone, I have to go." I do remember the boy pushing her back into the car to get rid of her. As the argument spilled onto the street, the driver's booker told him to sit tight. The girl again was yelling at the boy. They were having an argument. Yep, that's right. So we didn't hear football or psycho. So either there was an agreement that neither of those could come in, or the guy chose not to volunteer that on the stand and they weren't allowed to elicit it or didn't choose to elicit it. So let's look at Josh's reporting. Mr. Sanwar, driver for a private livery black car service, testifies through interpreter he drove Majors and Jabbari to BAM in Brooklyn and back to Lower Manhattan in a Cadillac Escalade. Sanwar recalls Jabbari demanding to see Major's phone when the Escalade was at intersection of Canal and Bowery. Quote, "The girl became very angry. The boy wanted to get rid of the girl, and he opened the door." Prosecutors play video footage showing the Escalade at Canal and Center Street, which coincidentally is just 2 blocks from the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse. And Dani described that like she's just walking around and all of it's right there. Driver Sanwar, quote, he was trying to get rid of her, and he says that twice. He was saying, leave me alone, I have to go. He was not doing anything, she was doing it. Driver witness speaking through Urdu interpreter. When the earlier happening, I had a feeling the girl had hit the boy because of the way she was fighting and the sounds produced. Major's attorney Seth Zuckerman cross-examines the driver for less than 2 minutes. He asks, did you ever find any blood in your vehicle after that night? And did you ever see, at any point that night, Mr. Majors being in the 3rd row of the vehicle? Sanwar off the stand. The driver testified he saw Jonathan Majors pushing her back in the car to get rid of her, but couldn't recall how many times the actress pushed. So, let's take a look at his article, because that's what he's leading with, is that part. The push, of course. He opens with the Michael Perez statement about throwing like a football in the paragraph part. He said he kept his eyes straight ahead, and he had a feeling the girl had hit the boy because of the way she was fighting, the sounds produced. So we've got that in there. Then they incorporate the prosecutor's claim of the twisting arm and finger injury. The girl became very angry after Majors refused to let her look at his phone. Sarwar testified, and that part's not in quotes. The boy wanted to get rid of the girl. He was trying to get rid of her. He was saying, leave me alone, I have to go. He was trying to throw her in the car, he testified. The driver testified he saw Majors pushing her back into the car to get rid of her, but couldn't recall how many times the actor had pushed. Gaffey sustained an objection when prosecutors asked Sarwar how hard Majors had pushed Jabbari. And then the 2 questions from Zuckerman. And then he says he doesn't see Majors in the 3rd seat of the 3rd row of the back seat. So, did you ever find any blood in your vehicle after that night? No. And did you ever at any point that night see Mr. Majors being in the 3rd row of the vehicle? And he also answers no. So, then we do not get the psycho girl in the testimony. Let's see if we have any. We have one story from the Independent and Courthouse News, which is Josh Russell. And then nothing else. And while we're talking about the news, this is a great time to highlight this tweet from Flavio. Shout out to Flavio. Manhattan DA were always afraid of the driver and even accused Priya of lying about his testimony. And remember, this went out on October 24th. That's the day after Elizabeth Rosner broke the news with the messenger that Grace Jabbari was going to be appearing for her arrest voluntarily for a desk appearance ticket in the 10 precinct. And Variety, I don't know if Rolling Stone did, but Variety pushed back on that, and the Rolling Stone and the whole slew of them, right on the eve of the next court hearing, started rolling out all these news stories discrediting the defense. So in this bit, they're saying they do counter the idea that video of the incident existed, which is fine. There is no video from inside the black car, the black Escalade. But they had said that Priya Chaudhry was misrepresenting the witness and that the witness was going to testify for them, saying here that prosecutors claim that when they showed the statement to the driver, he stated that he had never written it, approved it, did not previously know it existed, and that the above statements were all false, according to the motion. So while we didn't hear the phrase psycho girl, we heard everything else that we expected to hear based on what Priya Chaudhry described happened in the vehicle that the driver would see. We don't know what happened with what went on in the 3rd seat. And Priya never claimed anything about the 3rd seat of the vehicle in her letter or anything that I saw. And even though he didn't use the term psycho girl, he still described that it was Grace Jabbari that was angry. Overall, his testimony, no blood in the vehicle. It was apparent to him that Grace Jabbari was the one who started the fight, and it was over the phone, that Jonathan Majors said, leave me alone, I just want to get away, and was trying to just get away, and that it was Grace Jabbari that was angry. All right, I'm going to pull this up because King is doing the search too. Oh my God. Okay, so the Yahoo result is just a syndication of the Independent. I know I'm a little all over the place complaining about these news outlets, but moving on, we're going to talk about the doctor's testimony. It's William K. Chiang, Chiang. So the spellings are going to vary a little bit because they're only hearing it out loud. Their court reporters are not sitting there seeing the name spelled out in front of them. So we're going to go with Victoria's coverage first. And this is after lunch. So we're coming back. We're getting William Chiang on the stand. And he is the Bellevue Hospital doctor that treated Jabbari. So he says that she had a fracture in her finger without separation and a cut behind her ear that was a little less than 1 inch in length, which was closed with skin glue. Doctor, in your experience, what would cause the type of injury that Miss Jabbari suffered? Chiang said it was consistent with being hit in the ear or hitting a sharp object. Cross momentarily. Priya Chaudhry now at the lectern. When a patient comes into Bellevue, oh, she's going for it. and you know they're going to have a psychiatric evaluation, it's important to medically clear that patient completely, correct? Yes. Chaudhry is asking Dr. Chiang whether doctors ask patients the mechanism of injuries, aka how one got hurt, as part of their assessment. That's especially true for head injuries, isn't that true, Dr. Chiang? Yes. Your medical did ask her exactly how she broke her finger? And then this is the response from the doctor. When Ms. Jabbari was asked by the medical team what the mechanism of injury to her finger was, to her middle finger was, she said she didn't know. Isn't that correct? We don't have an answer for that first one, but then we have another question from Priya. So this goes right into a second question. When Ms. Jabbari was asked by the medical team what the mechanism of injury to her middle finger was, she said she didn't know. Isn't that correct? He answered in the affirmative. That's a yes. That's correct. So another I didn't know. And remember, when Priya was questioning Grace about why she was saying I didn't know, that's why the judge felt that the prosecution was making the correct argument that Chaudhry was trying to impugn her credibility, and that's why those text messages were allowed in. But at the same time, I think it's important to hear this testimony that she was saying I didn't know how I hurt my finger after the court just saw her run into the wall while leaving the club at Lucy's. Miss Jabbari also did not say she was struck in the back of the head, did she? Answer, no. And then we're getting an explanation on the strategy of the defense from Victoria. You didn't notice anything like cauliflower ear on Miss Jabbari's right ear? Nope. Is there any documentation that Jabbari had scratches on her face? No. Miss Jabbari did not have any bruising on her face? No. Bruises on her neck? No. Chaudhry asked doctor about his knowledge of alcohol, of withdrawal, and substance abuse, and a score system used in assessing alcohol use disorder. She's asking about an assessment where Jabbari reports having 3 to 4 drinks a night and having 6+ drinks in one sitting monthly. Doctor says that info from this assessment would indicate she's at risk for alcohol abuse disorder. Again, this has come up with defense before, the argument being she was drunk, drank too much. Recall the whole to-do over her taking a bottle of wine onto the beach at Sag Harbor, and then tried to get behind a car and drive. Add that part in, thank you. Thanks for recalling it though a little bit. Cross of the doctors ended. Okay, so they did redirect, and now there's recross on the doctor, so I'm interested in seeing that. That is current. That is 5 minutes ago at the time of reading this. Recross is done. There's a redirect and no recross. The doctor finally dismisses a witness. Oh, so why didn't Victoria talk about the finger impact injury? And we have an update from Emily Palmer, and she quotes of the actor, the driver. This is the driver. He was not doing anything. And of his ex, the accuser, she was doing everything. Accuser was doing everything during alleged attack. Opening statements. So as far as the psycho girl and the like a football thing, that was all in pretrial statements made in English. So on court, he was speaking through his Urdu interpreter. He was not doing anything, Sauer said to the actor, referencing a set of interactions between the couple in the car that night. Then of Jabbari, she was doing everything. Assault charges, fighting. Last week, Jabbari's testimony, rage and aggression, and then Jabbari's testimony of the event. So she said she had snatched the phone from his hands, and in that response, Majors had twisted her right arm as she curled her body, just trying to protect myself. She said she felt a really hard blow against my head that took me aback. The following day, she went to the hospital and was treated for a hairline fracture to a bone in her middle finger and a cut to her ear. We get the text message mention. We have the driver say many things were happening. I had the feeling the girl had hit the boy. On several occasions throughout the driver's testimony, the judge reminded him, you can only testify to what is happening, not what you think happened. This is funny. So reviewing video surveillance footage of the couple's hired Cadillac Escalade parked on Canal and Center Streets, Sarwar, speaking through his interpreter, said that at one point he had stopped the car and Majors had gotten out. He was trying to get rid of her. Perez says, please keep your opinions to yourself. Thanks, Race. So Sarwar goes, he was trying to get rid of her. And as he repeats that, there's laughs from the rows of Major supporters seated behind him. The driver added, he was saying, leave me alone, I have to go. He was not doing anything. She was doing everything. Priya shook her head, smiling as she typed notes. Sauer also noted that Majors was trying to throw her in the car when Jabbari had attempted to follow him out of the vehicle. He was trying to push her into the car, and that the couple had eventually both left on foot. At one point, Majors and Chaudhry leaned toward each other, and Majors grinned. Then, as prosecutors played video surveillance from the roadside that March night, Majors made a shrugging motion with his Bible-holding hand, then tucked it back under his chin. After a lengthy discussion between the two defense lawyers, Majors huddled between them, Majors once shaking his head. Zuckerman stood for a cross-examination of the driver, lasting a single minute. So then apparently, according to People, Dr. William Chiang, an expert medical witness in the trial and an attending physician at Bellevue Hospital, where Jabbari was admitted for injuries to her finger and ear the day after the alleged assault, told prosecutors that both of Jabbari's injuries are, quote, consistent with the narrative she had shared. But on cross-examination, he said the injury to her finger was inconsistent with having been caused by someone twisting her finger. So that's why we're probably getting we need Dani for this, because that's where we have the direct examination, cross-examination, redirect, and recross. And then redirect with no recross. The good doctor was pretty good to the defense today. Despite a few inconsistencies in his direct versus cross testimony, most of what he said favored the defense. He tried really hard to accommodate the people, but the evidence didn't jive. The people redirected after each cross, for a total of 2 redirects. The good doctor, when questioned by defense, testified that Jabbari's audit C-score was a 5 and is positive and identifies hazardous drinking or alcohol abuse disorder. And while I wait for anything else to trickle in, I want to talk about a really big inconsistency. And this pieced together across 3 people, 3 of us having a conversation. So Nehemiah and King. And it all started with basic questions about the order of events and the timeline of Grace Jabbari, the bathroom, passing out on the bed, the pills, how she was found when she woke up. And in piecing little things together, light bulbs go off. So walk with me through this. And this is the key that starts the engine on this inconsistency. So Grace Jabbari had said that she recalled Jonathan Majors tripping over a suitcase. Now, we know when Jonathan Majors arrived at the penthouse apartment, and we know the police arrived not too long after that. So if he tripped over a suitcase, it should have been in that pretty small time window. Now let's walk through this inconsistency. So consider, before we talk about what she said on direct, consider the courtroom context during direct. Priya Chaudhry had not cross-examined Grace Jabbari yet, so the court has not heard Priya hammer out that less than 20-minute difference. It was 13 minutes between the last text that Grace Jabbari sent to her friend Holly while she had the phone with her in the closet and the time that the police arrive. And remember, when the police arrive, this is an image of what it looked like on the body cam. She was laying on her back on the closet, like extended long ways, just flat on her back. And remember, she was crying. She ran out of the courtroom and then came back, did not want to play this video, did not want to play and look at this video. And then she started crying again and kept saying, do I have to play it? And then remember, on direct, she testifies that she was trying to sleep on the bed and was very aware of the pain while she was laying on the side, and she couldn't sleep. So she gets up out of the bed and she decides that she's going to start packing so she can leave for good. But then she says she was exhausted, not just by the night's events, but by the prospect of packing, meaning the idea, the thought of packing, not the action of packing, which to me means she didn't even start packing. But maybe she started and was like, you know what, I can't do this right now. So she decides to go take a rest in what she says is the bathroom floor, and that she knows it was the bathroom floor and not the closet because there's heated floors in the bathroom of the penthouse, and she wanted to go lay down where it was warm. Then she testifies she woke up to a group of strangers feeling really overwhelmed. So let's break down the possibilities of how Grace Jabbari heard Jonathan Majors tripping over a suitcase, if that was her testimony on direct. So 1, there was no suitcase tripping. 2, he randomly tripped over a suitcase that was in its usual spot, but he happened to trip over it. 3, Jabbari left the suitcase in a spot that it usually isn't stored, and Jonathan tripped over it somewhere outside of the locked door. And my question there is, if you testified that you were going to pack and leave, if the suitcase is in a different place than it usually is, somewhere that it's in the pathway for someone to trip over it instead of stored away, why would you lock the suitcase out of the door if you said you locked the door for your protection but were planning to pack? And then additionally, if the suitcase was locked outside the door, was it anywhere near this sentimental photograph and lit candle that was set up? And then the 4th possibility, and maybe there's more, so if we go through the 4th and you think there's another reason, like, shout it out. But the 4th option that I came up with is, maybe the suitcase is inside the bedroom because she was about to start packing, and then he tripped over it after the handyman got the door open. But this would mean she was awake during the very, very, very short period after the handyman opened the door and the police arrive. But she had testified that she was asleep, she was unconscious, and the next thing she remembered was waking up and seeing all these strangers, meaning the police officers, standing over her while she was in the bathroom closet. And I don't know what to make of it except to say it seems inconsistent. I don't know. And that has nothing to do with anything new that came out on day 9 today in testimony. But speaking with others, putting other details together, like the math starts to, you either realize the maths or it doesn't. And I'm just trying to make it make sense. So, how did she hear him trip over the suitcase, but then was also asleep when the police arrive and she just wakes up shocked that they're there? When did she fall asleep? So, let me know what you think of the suitcase story and how it went down. Tell me your thoughts. Okay, and Danny's confirming the driver here that he did repeat, and was adamant and cool as a cucumber, and they didn't object. Oh my god, that's great. Well, leaving on that, and I think Danny's gonna go live on Dr. Hines, and I'm sure she'll go on other people's channels and have her own recap. So whatever I weave into this, if it's about to go live, come join us. If it already happened, the links will be in the description for you to find and go check out. But for now, let me know your thoughts on everything, and you guys take care.